No, no, I'm 64 now.
And what's your biological age?
Well, the last time I tested it, which actually is about just over a year and a half ago, it was 20.
Wow.
And smoking especially became my sort of dearest friend and companion because every time I lit up, that was a little bit of me time. And yeah, and I really loved it. It really meant a lot to me, my smoking. I say this in the book, but you've actually only got to walk a mile a day briskly to reduce your chance of dying by 30%. He said it's the equivalent of a scone at Starbucks.
Yeah.
But when I worked it out, it's also like 3, chocolate chip cookies, small ones. All of us can do it. It's really not that difficult to do, but you can really improve your health and thereby improve your life in a million different ways, really quite easily.
Yeah.
You set yourself up for failure. It's so much better to do these little, small, achievable changes, and they do just accumulate.
Hello and welcome to How to Have Extraordinary Relationships podcast with me, Lucy Cavendish. And today I am thrilled to be with Sandra Parsons. She's a journalist and an author of a book called Ageless. I love the word hacked her biological age from 60 to 20. And she's also a yoga teacher, which is really brilliant. So welcome and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for inviting me.
So just tell us about the book and how it came about, because how old are you now, Sandra? If I don't wish to be rude, but given the fact we're aging, we'll have to name it.
No, I'm 64 now.
And what's your biological age?
Well, the last time I tested it, which actually is about just over a year and a half ago, it was 20.
Wow.
So it may have gone up a bit since then. In fact, I am going to do it again quite soon. But that was really the catalyst for writing this book, because I never used to do any exercise at all. I didn't eat particularly healthily. I smoked a lot and loved it. I was a classic journalist in lots and lots of ways. And then I had a very bad back injury. And one thing led to another, and I ended up becoming much, much, much healthier. And then a few years ago, and really just out of curiosity, because I'd read somewhere a piece about you could get your biological age tested. And I thought, I wonder what mine is. So I did the test, which I had no connection with. It was something called glycanage, but I'd read about it in a magazine. And it's a blood test, and it tests for these things called glycans, which are very abundant markers of inflammation in your blood, like billions of them. Anyway, so I did this test. It's just a finger prick test. It was very easy to do, and I sent it off. And then I got an email that the result was back, and I opened it, and it said, "Congratulations, Sandra, your biological age is 20." And I honestly nearly fell off my chair. I was so surprised. And it was out of that, and then lots of people started saying to me, "You should write a book, you should write a book." And because my day job is as a journalist, and I've done lots of different things as a journalist, but for the last sort of 15 years, probably, I've been a books editor. And because I'm interested, or had become very interested in health, I'd read almost every book that was ever written about longevity. And I thought, well, actually, the thing about the books, the ones written by scientists, is that they're very dense and they're very, very sciencey. And they're quite hard to read, a lot of them, but full of, really valuable information. So I thought, well, I've got all that in my head, and I'll go and interview these sort of world experts and write a book and see what happens. And there we are. That's how it came about.
So when you say you're testing your biological, I thought you had to kind of run on machines while they tested your heart, and then, I don't know, blow into a blower while they tested your lung capacity, things with your hands to test your osteoporosis.
Yes, there are lots of different things. So the one you're talking about, where you run on a treadmill until what they call failure.
Okay, what's failure is when you can't run anymore.
Yes.
Oh, that'll take me about 1 minute, but never mind. Yeah.
That's to test something called your VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen your body can use. And that actually, and in fact, several of the experts I spoke to think that that is the best marker of longevity. And your VO2 max is only high. You want it to be high, and it's only high if you do a lot of cardio exercise, basically, unless you're very, very, very lucky. So mine is now quite high, but only because I now do a lot of exercise. And then the grip strength test is another really good, and you can buy I think they call it a gripometer. I bought one off Amazon. It was only about £30 or something, not very expensive. So that's a very, very good test, and you should do both hands, because most of us have a dominant hand that's stronger than the other hand.
Yes. And what's that testing?
Well, again, it's a very good marker, weirdly, of longevity, because as you get older, your grip gets weaker. And that's why, especially very old people, they can't take the top off a jar. Well, I mean, a lot of jars, you can't do it now anyway. But, and a really good way to improve your grip strength, apart from doing things like, squeezing a tennis ball, is to do what they call a dead hang in the gym.
Is that when you just hang off a bar like an orangutan?
You just hang from the bar. It's very, very good for your spine and lets your spine align and your muscles and everything. But it's also very, very good for your grip strength. And if you can aim to be able to dead hang for a minute, you'll be fine.
Can you dead hang for a minute?
I can, yeah.
Wow. Okay. So it's not. So when I think about biological age, I guess, and you're saying recently you had this pinprick test that said 20. In my mind, it makes me think that all your organs are functioning as a 20-year-old's, but I'm sure that can't be the case.
I don't think that can be the case. There's a guy called Brian Johnson, who you and your listeners may well have heard of. He lives in LA. He's done a Netflix documentary. He has, optimized every single aspect of his biological age, and he has spent millions and millions and millions doing it. All of which is actually quite valuable in research terms. And he puts most of this stuff out there. But he, among other things, has had every single organ tested. So he knows how old his liver is, his heart, his kidneys, you name it. He's even done his, I can't remember what they call it, but anyway, the number of erections you get in a night. His matched those of an 18-year-old.
Of course he has.
Of course he has.
He wouldn't tell you otherwise. Right, yeah. Okay.
So I don't know how old any of my organs are, but the test I did for glycans, they are markers of inflammation. And what everyone agrees is that inflammation is a very, very bad thing, and you don't want to have it in your body. And it underpins really every single chronic illness there is, from high blood pressure to stroke, to heart disease, to diabetes, you name it, they are all underpinned by high inflammation. So you're trying not to have high inflammation. And that's what mine measured. So really mine just shows that I have low inflammation in my body, but it doesn't necessarily mean that my organs are young. Yes. Although one of the people I interviewed for the book is a really eminent cardiologist at the University of Texas, Benjamin Levine. And he took this group of people for a study, and he made them do exercise. I think for the study, they just had to be without any marks of heart disease, but they weren't people who exercised regularly. They weren't particularly
they weren't kind of top athletes.
No, not at all. They were really ordinary people who might occasionally exercise. That was it. But what they didn't have was any signs of heart disease. That was the kind of baseline for it. And I think they were all under 50. Anyway, he made them do this thing called a 4x4x4, which he based on what the Norwegian ski team used to do as an exercise, which sounds brutal, and I've never actually tried it. So you go all out for 4 minutes. So that might be running or it might be cycling.
Right, but you're really pushing.
Very intense cardio exercise, as fast as you can, as hard as you can for 4 minutes. Yes. Then you rest for 3 minutes. And then you do all out again for 4, rest for 3, and you do that 4 times altogether.
So this is like intermittent running.
Yes, it's like high intensity.
High intensity training,
yeah.
So you're running for 4, resting for 3, running for 4, resting for 3.
Yeah. And I've done that kind of exercise where you do it for a minute and rest for half a minute. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
absolutely brutal. So I dread to think. Anyway, he had them do that, and he had them do I think 2 bouts of what they call threshold training of 30 minutes, where you're sort of running at quite a sort of pace or cycling at quite a pace, but you can sort of keep it up. And then he had them do an hour in zone 2 where you could chat. Whatever it is you're doing, you can still talk quite
Through it.
comfortably.
So you're not
So
panting
you'd be
like a nothing.
cycling or running quite slowly or swimming
Or
actually.
swimming.
Anyway,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
he had them do this and he had them do 2 weight sessions as well a week. So it was a lot of exercise. But by the end of this study, they had actually rejuvenated their hearts. You know, their arteries were more elastic and clearer. The hearts
Wow.
themselves had got bigger and more muscular. It was amazing. So
That
you
is
can actually
amazing.
rejuvenate your heart. I don't know about any of the other organs, but you can rejuvenate your heart.
So let's take you back. So you were a typical journo,
Mm,
and I say this because I was a journalist,
mm,
and I drank, smoked, lived on
mm.
fast food, didn't sleep,
Yeah,
ran on adrenaline, loved a deadline, loved my
yeah,
life, thought it was great, thought sort of eating healthy and exercise was for wimps.
yeah.
So that's where you were at.
That was me totally. I mean, I'd never done any exercise, and you know, I think if I'd thought about it, which I didn't, I was afraid of exercise because I,
Mm.
you know, it wasn't that I was rubbish at school, but I knew I couldn't run very fast or far. So I was never a
Mm.
runner, and I used to quite like netball, and that was about it, you know. Um,
Would you get picked for the team, or were you the person that, when you were a kid and they picked you for a team and you,
yeah, no, I wasn't that. No, I would often be in the team, but I never took it that seriously because I was always a
yeah,
bit cool, you know.
you
And
were
so it was,
quite, okay, so there's a bit of fear around exercise because you
yeah,
weren't a sporty lass.
yeah, and it was not cool to exercise, so I didn't do it. It was cool to smoke, so I did do that.
Mm.
Um, and then, you know, I had a really big job actually as a journalist.
Yeah, you were running the Sunday Times virtually.
And it was very, very, very demanding. And by then, I wouldn't have had any, and I had 2 children, and I had to commute like an hour to work each way and work very long hour, you know, all that stuff. And smoking especially became my sort of dearest friend and companion, because every time I lit up, that was a little bit of me time.
Mm.
And
Wow.
yeah, and I really loved it. It really meant a lot to me, my smoking. And then, but it, you know, I did give up each time I was pregnant quite
Yeah.
easily because I
Yes.
had bad morning sickness. But
Yeah.
I started again each time, a few months in. And I really sort of hated myself for that. And I thought, actually, I really don't want my children to smoke. And you know, I was aware of what a bad example I was setting. And I was already a working mother, which is obviously bad enough already,
Yes,
you know.
bad
So
enough. I mean,
this was
don't
yet
tell me you
another.
didn't breastfeed. I mean, that, and you didn't have them in a birthing pool. Then you're really bad.
Exactly. So anyway, so the chance came up through my job to be hypnotized by Paul McKenna because we were doing one of his books,
Mm.
and he was very, very famous then. And he didn't do one-on-ones; he just did these massive events at the O2. So this was quite something to be given the one-on-one with Paul McKenna.
Yeah.
So I went, really not expecting it to have any effect whatsoever, but equally, I thought it would be great if I could really stop smoking. And funnily enough, he was living in Kensington at the time, and I was working in Wapping, so it was quite a way to go. And I remember when I came out of the session with him, you know, I thought. Actually, as I went in, I thought, well, when I come out, I'll probably have a fag and a coffee before I get on the tube to go back to work.
Yeah.
And I remember coming out of this session with him and just thinking, oh, actually, I just really don't want one. How that's quite weird. And more than that, I felt really kind of high almost. Just really felt fantastic. And so from that day on, I've never had a cigarette. And that was back in
That's
2000.
amazing.
Yeah, 2006. I still find it really difficult to believe. I mean, funnily enough, for a photo shoot for the book, um, I had to pose with a cigarette, and I just thought, you could not pay me. You could pay me £1 million, I wouldn't smoke again.
God, so he changed your psyche around smoking. I mean,
Yeah,
he says he can
yeah.
do that. Lots of hypnotists say that we can change your psyche around smoking.
Mm.
It actually worked.
Yes, and he said afterwards, actually, it was because he didn't just do the hypnosis, that came right at the end. He did lots of different things. He did neuro-linguistic programming, which is this tapping.
Yeah.
He did a visualization technique, which for me really worked, where he said, can you picture yourself somewhere at a time, maybe on holiday, when you felt really healthy and happy? And I said yes. He said, right, can you actually picture a photograph of you, exactly what you're wearing, and I just could. I got this image. So he said, right, now I want you to imagine a situation, a classic situation where you would find it really hard not to have a cigarette. What would that be? And I said, well, it would be, having a drink or at a party with some friends. I would find that really difficult. So he said, right, okay, so now I want you to imagine you're holding the drink, you've got a cigarette, you're about to bring it to your lips. And just before it gets there, you bring in this image of yourself from sort of over there in that corner up there, and you bring it in and you smash the cigarette out of your hands with that picture.
Of the happy,
Anyway,
healthy
out of
picture.
out of all the things he tried, I think that one worked the best.
Hmm.
And the hypnosis at the end, where you don't, he said, don't be afraid and you won't lose consciousness and you'll be aware the whole time of what's going on, which I was, but it was very, very calming.
Mm.
And he gave me a tape to play, or CD. Anyway, yeah. And I really think that was actually the catalyst, that and injuring my back, the two things were the kind of push that I needed. But he said it only really worked because I wanted to stop.
Yes,
And
and
he
that's
said,
right. If you don't want to stop, nothing works.
if, he said people come to him and say they want to stop, but they
Mm.
don't actually. Whereas I really did, for the sake of my children. And he said, that's a very strong driver, very
Yes.
strong motivator.
Yes.
Um,
Because it's interesting because thinking about there's a sort of identity around smoking, which I think you named, which is the cool people smoked.
yeah. And do you know what? They still do.
I
I mean,
know, it's
I,
terrible. I wish
I,
they didn't, but they do. I always think they're the cool people because I used to
well,
smoke and I loved it.
yeah, but what's interesting to me is, so now I've got helping me in my job. He's 26, lovely guy, and he smokes. And all the interesting people he meets, whenever I say, "How did you meet so and so?" He say, "Oh, smoking outside, smoking at a party." And he's met fascinating people that way. He's
Yeah.
met a woman with an incredible villa in Florence who designs for a very, very well-known company, I won't say, but makes these beautiful artistic designs for them. And he met her because they were both outside having a fag. And now she invites him all the time to, stay for long weekends in her villa in Florence.
Wow.
Don't
Yeah.
smoke though, children.
Don't smoke. Yeah, but it's interesting because I think it's not just about, I think there's something about the ritual of smoking because I think it's to do with your mouth, but there's something in the social cachet or you see yourself as a rebel because only
Yeah,
really, because you're kind of putting two fingers up to your health, but
yeah,
you don't see it that way.
absolutely.
You're kind of putting two fingers up to like boring, dull people that eat chia
Mm,
seeds and do nothing but chant.
mm.
That's what you're the rebel,
And now you're really breaking the rules because you're not allowed to smoke anywhere, are you?
No,
So,
so you're really breaking the rules.
yeah, yeah,
So something changed and you stopped, but then you got this terrible and I think that sense, yes, of this healthy person who's a mother and doesn't want her children to see her smoking because no one wants that. No one really wants that because kids don't think it's cool. They
no,
don't look at their parents and go, I think it's great you're smoking.
no, they hated it.
Yeah. Did they
Um,
say, could you stop?
yes, all the time, all the time. And I think that, that was also, I'm trying to think, my daughter was then probably about 9, and my
Mm,
son was about 6, 5 or 6, and they loathed it.
yeah.
They did actually subsequently, as teenagers, they both did then smoke to my great distress. But they have now both given up, so that's good.
Okay. And then you hurt your back.
Yes, so that was funny because then I thought, okay, I'm going to start trying to run, going to start trying to get healthy. That was my sister-in-law, because she was a bit of a runner, and she said to me, "Why don't you just try running? It would be very good for your stress." And I said to her, I know I won't be able to run. She said, "No, just try, just run to the church and back." And she said, "That can't be more than about half a mile." So I said, "Okay, I'll give it a go." Anyway, I just couldn't do it. And literally, I didn't get to the end of the road without having to stop. And I thought, this is really bad.
Mm.
And then I thought, right, I'm going to bloody do this. And so I kept going, kept going, kept going every morning, really early, like 6 a.m. before the school run. And I finally cracked it. And that very same day, I was, I took the children to school, and my back was unbelievably painful. I drove them to school, and then I drove back home, and then I got the tube. It's a long tube journey to Wapping. And it was so painful. I was actually sort of making little groans. I couldn't help it on the tube, which caused an absolute no-no. And people were giving me slightly weird looks. And I couldn't sit and I couldn't stand. I really didn't know what to do with myself. And then I got to work, which is at the time, and I went through the day, and it got worse and worse and worse. And eventually, and actually it was Sarah Vine, who you've had on your podcast.
3 times now.
So she was a colleague of mine on the Times, and she said to me about 4 o'clock, she said, "Look, I'm going to take you to my osteopath, because you really need help." And I said, "I really do." So she took me to her osteopath, who immediately said, "Your entire back's gone into spasm. Whatever
Wow.
you've done, this is very, very bad. And this is why you're in agony. And there's really nothing to be done until it unspasms." Anyway,
Wow.
luckily, because my husband is a doctor, a hospital doctor, and I'd rang him. I'd rung him, and but he didn't get home until about 8 or 9. But when he did, he brought with him some very, very strong medication, which and I can still remember. I was lying on the sofa, and when this kicked in, it was just, I just suddenly, the pain was gone. It was incredible. Um, and anyway, I after that, it was a good sort of week where I couldn't really even walk properly, and all my toes were numb on my right foot. And it turned out it was a very severe prolapsed disc.
Oh, wow. From
Yeah.
running, from running.
Yeah, well, it turned out that it was inevitable, because I had a scoliosis on my spine, a curved spine, not massive,
Mm.
um, and because I had no core strength, and I just wasn't strong in any way. It was literally an accident waiting to happen. So once I sort of got over the worst bit of it, I went to see this other incredible woman called Sarah Keys, who it later she treated now King Charles for years, and Camilla. I didn't know that at the time. She
Mm.
was at the Hay Clinic, which was quite famous in those
Mm.
days, and that's where I found her. But anyway, so she helped me sort of get over the first hump. And then I started doing Pilates, because everyone will tell you when you've injured your back, you've got to strengthen your core.
Yes. Yes.
And that was really the start of it. And I went very religiously to Pilates, and I saw my body shape changing in the mirrors. And I'd never really taken much notice of my body before in a way like that, because I've always been, luckily, quite slim.
Mm. Mm.
And I just never really paid any attention to it, which is very arrogant, but it never really gave me any jip,
Any bother? Didn't give you any bother. It was no
didn't give me
bother.
any bother.
Mm.
And so I just literally, I would only look in a mirror to see what my clothes looked like. I never actually looked at my body. And
Mm.
in the Pilates class, I was suddenly looking at it, and I could see it changing, and I could see I was starting to get muscles in my arms. And so then I thought, oh, okay. And I felt better. That
Yes.
was the thing. I really felt better. And then one thing led to another, start doing yoga, start doing running. And
Yes.
then I was a full-blown addict before you could say, addiction.
I mean, was it, did you see it as being one of those life-changing moments where you think, I need to start living my life in a different way? I overwork, I'm too busy, I never allow. I mean, was it that, or was it more, not so much that?
It wasn't actually. In fact, I'm much more think like that now. from about that perspective. But at the time, I mean, I knew I was too busy and that I worked too much, but I saw no way out of it, because we needed my income, and I kind of thought I have to cope with it as best I can. It was more that, and I realized that the fitter I got, the easier it became to cope with all that stuff, because it really makes a difference to your life when you become fit. You can
Yes.
just do so much more easily,
Mm, mm.
um, and you feel better mentally, and that has a knock-on effect to everything else. So I think it was more just it was that, and the fact that I'd had a good kind of week where I was literally walking like an extremely old woman, uh,
Ah,
hanging on to someone's arm because my leg was numb. My entire right leg was numb all the way down to the toes. And
oh,
in fact,
God.
the little toe and the one next to it stayed numb for, I mean, it was only a few years ago that I got the feeling back in those. It was really severe. And it was
Really.
a real wake up call. And I thought, I don't want to be like that. And I don't want to be like that in old age. And I don't want that to happen to me. So that was very motivating.
Yes.
Pain, as they say, is a great motivator.
And then, I mean, bar getting your core strength, there was nothing they could do for your spine. Did they operate on it, or did they say you've got to have a back brace? I mean, were you facing kind of some?
No, in fact, they did recommend that I had a back operation, but my husband said, don't. That's a drastic step, and don't."
Right.
I'm so glad now that I didn't. But he was more kind of, let's just give it time. Let's see how it goes. Um, and and so I did. I thought, I don't really want an operation.
Mm,
And as I carried on, and of course now I really firmly believe that your body's such an incredible instrument. You really can. It can achieve incredible things if you give it the chance.
mm. So what do
Um,
you need to do to give your body a chance? What do we need to do in order to help our bodies, stay young, fit,
mm,
lithe, active, because none of us want to be, as you said, that old
old
person
person.
doubled up in agonizing pain. We don't want to
Yeah.
do that.
Um, well, I mean, it is very boring, it really is. I would say number one, move more. I would even put that above food,
Okay.
because there's this expression, motion is lotion.
Yes.
And the more you move your body, the better it feels, because your body was designed to move.
Yes.
And you don't have to go
Mm.
running, um, but you should. For example, I do mobility exercises every morning.
Do you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So is it like
I
yoga exercise?
No, no, not yoga. In fact, I don't actually do that much yoga now. I teach it at the weekend, but I teach yin yoga now, which is a very meditative,
Yeah.
slow form of yoga. Um, and I would sort of put mobility exercises above almost anything else as a way to start, where you are literally working every joint in your body, just keeping it functional. Even if, I don't know if you can see my hands.
Yes, I
If
can.
you were to do, if you were to do this, I do this
Ah.
18 or 20 times,
But
sort
that's
of
really interesting.
articulating.
Still making all your fingers come out and your
Yeah,
wrist
but
with your wrist.
you're
Yeah.
doing all your fingers together. What you want is to articulate them one by one.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I see. Yes. So you're
Yeah,
moving your fingers
yeah,
individually.
yeah.
That's really
So you
interesting.
literally start with your fingers and you work up wrists, elbows, shoulders, neck, thoracic spine, abdomen, hips, legs, knees, ankles, toes. I even work my toes. And I try to do that every single morning. And if everybody even just did that and walked a mile a day, you would massively improve your functional health. And in fact, one of the things I say this in the book, but you've actually only got to walk a mile a day briskly
Yeah.
to reduce your chance of dying by 30%. 30%.
Mm,
It's
mm,
incredible. And it's
mm.
not that much.
Yes. It's not that much a mile a day.
So I would say, you don't have to become a runner. You don't have to be doing Dr. Levine's 4 by 4 by 4. the more you do, the better. But if you just started with moving all your joints every single day and walking a mile briskly every single day, that would be great.
And
So I
how
think
long does it take for you how long do you take doing your mobility exercises?
10 minutes. It
Okay, so
takes
it's not like massively
no,
long.
no, it's 10 minutes. And I try never to miss it. And I also do a on top of that, because you'll know this, but sitting at a desk all day as a journalist typing
Yeah,
for
terrible.
years, I mean, my shoulders and neck are just a kind of were, not anymore, but were just horrific.
Mm.
So I do an additional thing with a broomstick to really open up my shoulders
Really?
and
What, where you
thoracic
go, like,
muscles.
back and down behind.
Yes,
Oh,
yeah,
wow, okay.
yeah,
Great.
yeah. But they're quite, these are simple things. You don't have to go to a
Yeah.
gym. In fact, I don't belong to a gym. Um, so I just think if everyone were to do that, and after that, I would say sleep is
Mm.
absolutely vital. And again, it's kind of very boring. I interviewed an incredible sleep guy who's director of the sleep clinic at
Mm.
University of Arizona. He was so good on sleep and how one of the things he said was that the reason winding down before you actually go to sleep is so important. He said, imagine if you're landing a jet, a passenger jet. You don't suddenly go from 30,000 feet, you don't go like this and come into land. You take your time, they descend slowly, 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 slowly. They bring it in gently to land. And that's what you have to be doing when you go to sleep. I mean, it's just one of many things he said, but it's a really good analogy.
Mm. Mm.
So, it's no good watching some incredible thriller on Netflix that's got you on the edge of your seat and then thinking,
Yeah.
all right, I'll go to bed now and go to sleep, because it's not going to happen. You need to let yourself come down.
Yes,
Um,
yeah, that sounds sleep health, isn't it?
anyway, and for years and years and years, I haven't had enough sleep. I mean, for most of my adult life, I would say I've got by on 5 or 6 hours sleep, which is very, very bad.
Really?
Yeah. And for the last sort of year especially, I've really prioritized it, and it changes your life. But you
And
have to make a real effort
so
to
what
do
did you
that.
do? You sort of stopped watching zombie movies? I love them.
No, it's not so much that. I just made much more of an effort to get 7.5 to 8 hours sleep.
Okay, so that means you have to have a bedtime so that you don't just sort of stay
Yes,
up till 1 in the morning
yeah.
doing
And
whatever.
it also means, because I was in the habit of getting up very early in order to do many, 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 many things before I go to work.
Mm. Mm.
Um, and so now I don't get up quite so early. I just think actually I'm going to prioritize the sleep. Because if you've had a good night's sleep, it's such a sort of obvious thing to say, but you really feel different. You can cope so much better with anything if you're well rested.
So is that so for you, is that also part of the mental noise
Yeah,
that yeah, because
yeah.
you've probably got a busy mind.
I don't know if I've got a busy mind. Everybody I know, including my family and my children especially, say I do too much. I'm always doing something. I always think my mind's quite boring, and there probably isn't anything in it, but that may or may not be true. I'm now sort of very, very into meditation, and I've been meditating for a long time now, and that definitely really helps.
Mm.
Um, so, and it's very difficult. I would really encourage people to meditate, but I know a lot of people find it very hard. And things like running, actually, or swimming or cycling can be very meditative, and
Yes,
so can things like Pilates and yoga, because
yes,
while you're doing them, it's very, very difficult to think of something else because
yes,
you're focusing so much on the thing you're doing.
yes. I think
So,
that's true. Yeah. So you started writing the book from your experience and finding
mm,
out you've got the biological age of a 20-year-old, which is amazing, and sort of how your life changed. And then you went and talked to lots of people, didn't you, about
yeah,
how we can help ourselves and support our bodies and
yeah,
change, make small changes to our lifestyle.
yeah. Well, yeah, I sort of narrowed it down to that after I interviewed them all.
Mm,
Um, and they were amazing, and they're experts and all the rest of it. But I realized what it came down to, the biggest study there's ever been done on food, for example, caloric restriction. So that's been known for years now, that
mm,
restricting your calories, eating less, helps you live longer. But most of the studies have been done in mice.
Yeah,
because it's
yeah.
quite difficult to study it in humans.
Mm,
Anyway, um, the biggest study there's ever been done into this is called the calorie trial, and their ambition was they had 200 people, men and women, who were of kind of normal weight. They weren't thin, they weren't fat.
mm,
Um, and what they said to them was, we want you to cut your calories by 25%, which is quite a lot. It's a quarter.
yeah, yeah.
Don't change anything else about the way you eat. Eat whatever you would normally eat, but cut by a quarter. And we're going to do
Okay.
this for 2 years, right?
Oh, so quite a long time. Yeah, yeah, big
It's a
study.
long time.
Yeah,
It was a long
yeah.
trial. Anyway, the long and the short of it was that none of them managed to cut their calories by 25%. It was just too much.
They can do it.
And the average that they achieved was 11.9%. So actually just under 12%. But at the end of 2 years, bearing in mind they did nothing else, they didn't change anything else about what they ate, and they didn't exercise more, they did nothing. They just lived their lives as they were living them, but they were eating, as it turned out, between 10 and 12% fewer calories. So everything about them, their cholesterol went down, their blood pressure went down, their risk of diabetes massively dropped, their
Wow.
mood improved, their libido improved, their sleep improved. They had a reduction in this C-reactive protein, which is a very key sort of indicator of your inflammation.
Mm,
You name it, it got drastically better. On top of that, they had lost on average 7.5 kilograms, which is more than a
mm.
stone, about
Yeah,
60
yeah,
pounds.
yeah.
And for every year of their life, so in those 2 years, they'd aged biologically by only a month for each year. So they'd only aged biologically by 2 months over those 2 years. So it was this
Mm,
absolutely kind of incredible result that blew the minds of the sort of scientists. They weren't expecting that at all.
mm.
Anyway, I interviewed this very great guy called Professor Bill Krause, who's at Duke in North Carolina, and he was on the original calorie trial, and there have been millions of studies extrapolating from it ever since. So he's a real expert on it, and he basically said, if you think about it, it's the equivalent. Well, because he's American, he said it's the equivalent of a scone at Starbucks.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
when I worked it out, it's also like three, chocolate chip cookies, small ones. It all of us can do it. It's really
yeah,
not that difficult to do.
yes.
And then the other interesting thing I found, now that you can't move for people talking about high fiber now, but when I was writing my book, no one was talking about it because there's a huge body of research about fiber, which is the most anti-inflammatory food you can eat.
Ah, yeah.
It's incredibly good for you on every level, and none of us eat enough. We
No,
all eat way below the recommended amount, but it's very, very filling. So if you increase the fiber in your diet, and you will anyway start to eat between 10 to 12% less. But if that's your aim, to eat more fiber and to do time restricted eating, I recommend as well, but
yeah.
not breakfast. You only need 12 to 14 hours.
Mm.
All you need to do is not eat after your evening meal, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And then don't eat again until the morning.
Yeah. So, that's really, again, not that hard. It's just that we're not used to doing it, you know. But if you finish your evening meal at 7:30 and eat nothing until 7:30 the next morning, you've done it.
You've
That
done your
that's
12 hours.
that's all it
So,
is.
yes, carry on. Sorry.
Well, just to say the combination of that, increasing your fiber to the recommended amount, and fasting overnight, that's it. But by doing that, you'll cut your calories by 10 to 12%, and all those improvements will happen to you, and you'll lose weight. So it's quite
Mm.
easy.
Yes. Fiber, I'm never sure where to get fiber from. I mean,
Yeah.
apart from bran flakes.
Yes. No, that which is very, very boring. It's in quite a lot of things that I didn't know, that I wasn't sort of expecting. So it is in things like beans,
Mm.
which I kind of did know, and I thought, oh, I just hate beans. I especially don't like baked beans. I just thought I can't do beans. But actually, I found you can do beans, especially if you mix them with pasta. So if you have a pasta dish, but you make half of it beans and half of it pasta, it's actually delicious. And
Yes.
then I
Well, I
got
like beans.
yeah, I very much got into a butter bean salad thing that I made. Anyway, the more you eat beans, I think the more appealing they become. But also green beans are full of fiber.
Yeah, I
Uh,
like green beans. I love beans. I'm all good on beans.
yeah, okay, so
'Cause
you're good.
I just think of it. I'm sure I don't get enough fiber. I know I don't get enough fiber. I just don't
Well,
eat
I
enough
do give
fiber as well.
these. So an avocado is has 10 grams of fiber in it. It's
Oh,
just, and you only need to be eating 30 grams of fiber a day. And a slice of wholemeal, whole grain bread has about 3 grams of fiber in it. So if you had 2 slices of wholemeal, whole grain bread with avocado on top, you're already at 16 grams of fiber. And that might just be your lunch. Do you see what I mean?
yes. And how much are you supposed to have a day? 30.
30.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I
So
definitely.
let's say you then for your breakfast, let's say you had a bowl of yogurt, ideally Greek
Yes, with
yogurt,
let's say nuts.
with a good handful of nuts and half a punnet of raspberries. You would then that's about 9 grams of fiber.
Right. So what's interesting is that fibers and all sorts of things that I didn't realize it was in. So that's really useful to know.
I never knew it was in raspberries so
No,
much.
no,
They're
no,
really
no. I
high in
love
fiber,
raspberries. Yeah,
and so are blackberries actually. And you can
yeah,
buy them all year round. I'm sure it's very
yeah.
bad for the environment, but in fiber terms, it's very good. Um, you know, baked potatoes got a lot of fiber in it. Sweet potatoes got a lot of fiber in it. Peas have. A pear has got about 6 grams of fiber,
Well,
especially
I
if
like
you eat it with
pears.
the skin on.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Okay,
got
this is
5.
great. Yes.
So you mustn't peel them. You've got to keep the skin on.
Yeah, yeah. No, we don't
So
peel them.
it's just really not that hard. You know, tomatoes have got 2 or 3 grams of fiber if you have a sort of handful of tomatoes. It's much easier actually than you think.
Yes. Yes.
And that's before we've even got onto beans, you know.
Yeah, so I mean, all this, all the research in the book, it's really interesting. And I know that you're now carrying on as a journalist, but you're the literary editor of the Daily Mail, so slightly pivoted.
Mm.
Um, and you're saying, I mean, we've come to him, but there's so much interesting things. And I really like this sense that it's not I think, oh my God, it's all gonna be so difficult, it's all gonna be so hard, but it actually isn't. It
It
isn't.
doesn't, it really doesn't have to be, because I think the problem is people think, and I was one of these people, I just think, oh Christ, you know, I don't like beans, I can't run, I
Mm,
love smoking, pour me another glass of wine and, you know, shoot me tomorrow kind of thing.
mm,
And it's like anything actually. You
yes.
only need to do these small changes, and one small change leads to another small change. That's the beauty of it. So
Mm,
okay, for me, giving up smoking was a massive change, but
mm,
you know, you can walk a mile a day. That's a relatively small change, and it will just do something. It will switch your head in a way that you think, okay, actually, maybe I could have an avocado every day.
yeah,
Do you see what I mean?
I
It
do.
becomes, you realize that actually it's not that daunting. It's not just for special people.
Mm,
Anyone can do this. You don't have to be, you know, particularly, you don't have to be an athlete. You don't have to have been good at sport. Um, it's all very, very doable, and it's actually not miserable. In fact, it's the opposite. It's really enjoyable. Because
mm,
I think I certainly thought that doing these things would feel like punishment. And maybe, you know, maybe back in the day it was presented as punishment, you know, but but it really isn't. You just feel good on it, and the more you do, the more you can do, and
and on it goes.
there it
Yeah,
goes.
great. Thank you so much for that. It's really helpful and inspiring, actually.
Well,
Because
yeah, I want to. I feel really passionate actually because I think precisely because I was such an unlikely candidate for it. Um, and I now feel very, very passionate about it. And I really want to communicate that to people, that you can really improve your health and thereby improve your life
yeah,
in a million different ways, really quite easily. And you don't have to beat yourself up, and you don't have to judge yourself, and you don't have to, you know, you don't have to worry about failing.
yeah,
Because, you know, I think that's the other thing. People start a diet or they start an exercise regime and they tend to go quite extreme. in my experience, people say, right, okay, I'm going to run every day. I'm going to go to the gym every day. I'm never going to eat sugar ever again. It's too much. You
Yeah.
set yourself up for failure. It's so much better to do these little, small, achievable changes, and they do just accumulate, and then your confidence builds up with it.
Mm.
And before you know it, you're suddenly living a different kind of life as a different sort of healthy person without ever meaning to, although you still can't smoke outside at a party.
But also you don't lose your sense of self. It's not like you're not still you. You are you. It's just you're not smoking, drinking you.
Yeah. And yes, and again, you sort of realize that the smoking, drinking you, um, it's all a part of a sort of defense that we put up, isn't it, in a way, because we think that the real me isn't good enough in whatever way that is. Not that I ever thought of it like that, but looking back, I guess that is a lot of it.
Mm.
Um, and, I think, well, maybe I'm a bit less fun. I certainly don't get, drunk anymore. I just would hate to. Um, but the gain is so much more. Like I said, you just couldn't pay me to go back to being like that.
Mm.
And I just, I have a lot of energy. I think, people say, "Oh, I feel really tired." I meet people all the time who say, "Oh, just everybody feels tired, don't they?" And I say, "Well, actually, I don't."
Yeah, I
You
don't.
know,
I've got a huge amount. Yeah, I've got like piles of energy. I've got too much.
yes,
I could probably wire up the entire of the UK.
yeah, but fantastic. But I think for that's not most people's experience. Most people's
Mm.
experience is that they're exhausted, um, and
Why,
whether
why,
that's
why are they so exhausted?
um, well, I think obviously a lot of it is stress. Stress is a killer. It
Yeah.
raises your cortisol for a start, and then you eat more, and everything goes pear shaped. But um, y- yeah, I think they're stressed, and if movement creates energy, you can't destroy energy, and actually, you can't create it. You can only transform it. But by moving your body, you are transforming that energy, and
Yeah.
it's coming into you. By sleeping, you're doing the same. Um, and it's just when you have that, when you wake up feeling good, and when your day goes by with you full of energy,
Mm.
um, that is such an enriching way to live.
Yeah,
It
it's a
really is.
yeah.
And all those cliched things, like, again, this, I suppose, because I run, but you become much more connected to the world outside. And I really notice things. It really pleases me when I see a tree or a flower, or I'm running by the river. And you realize that life is great with very small things. I mean, this all sounds so sickening, I know. But
It doesn't. I think it's really important.
it's so important. And again, it's the more you do it, the more you notice it, the more you notice it next time, and your whole life becomes one of noticing and taking pleasure in these really small things. It's the same with the food. You take pleasure in a bowl of delicious food that is nourishing you.
Mm.
It's a pleasurable thing. It's a pleasure to eat it.
Yeah.
um I couldn't tell you the last time I had some rubbishy food, because
Yeah.
it no longer gives me pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear
um,
that. It's not pleasurable for you.
No, so your whole your life is enriched in so many ways, that seem unfeasible to someone who's on the other side of that. That's the thing. But it's a journey, isn't it? It
Yeah.
takes a few years. It's not something you can achieve overnight.
No.
It's
No.
just a process. Everything's a process.
Yeah.
Um,
It
so
is.
yeah, but I hate to sound sanctimonious or anything like that, and I would not like to sound preachy. And most of all, I think I really understand how it is to be very, very stressed, having to juggle a lot of things, be all things to all people. Um, you know, while all this was going on, my father was living with us after my mother had died. You know, there was a lot happening in my life,
Mm,
and I just know how it feels, and you just think, I can't just shut up and go away. I'm not going to eat a bloody avocado or go for a run, thanks. You know, I need a glass of wine. I really identify with that, and
yes. But when you hear the word need around things like that, you know, it's getting, you know,
yeah,
again, I'm not against sanctimonious, but it's a language. When I hear someone say, I need a glass of wine,
yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying don't, but you know, it's the word need that makes me,
Yes,
oh,
yes, but
thing.
all I'm saying is I
Mm.
understand that. I
Yeah.
feel that person. I know
Yeah.
how it feels, and it doesn't help to say to that person, you know, stop drinking, stop smoking, start doing exercise and eat healthily, because that's not going to get them off the chair. You know,
No.
they need to feel that actually it's achievable, and with small steps, and not just achievable but actually enjoyable.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's that, you know.
It is that.
Um,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Great. Thank you so much. We could
yeah,
talk for
my
hours,
pleasure.
but that's really great. I really hear that, especially at the end. I really get what you're saying. We've all been there. And maybe even lots of us are still there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've just got a lot better at saying no. I've
Yes.
got a lot better at knowing that doesn't make me a mean cow. It just makes me someone who prioritizes my well-being and health.
Yes, exactly. But it's quite hard to do.
Really hard,
Really.
really hard, but important, but not
Yeah.
easy.
I know. You have to think about pleasing yourself rather than pleasing others, and that's very difficult.
Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the
My pleasure.
podcast.
Thank
Now,
you for
so
having
the
me.
book is available on Amazon or in your local bookshop. We're supporting independent bookshops as much as we can, so go and order it if it isn't there. Where else might people find you? Do you want them to find you? How else might they interact with you?
Oh, well, I mean, well, I am on Instagram, but I haven't posted anything for months.
Because you're very busy being
But
healthy.
I did do with the help of a very nice person, lots of things on Instagram about cooking healthy meals,
Great.
and a few exercises and things like that. So that's all still up there, but I haven't actually added anything particularly new to it.
Okay. So they can find, basically go and get the book.
Yes, or I think it's at Ageless the Method on Instagram. But yeah, so it's quite helpful. Some of the stuff is just I don't post every day or every month or possibly even every year. But anyway, there we are.
You've had a social media detox.
No, I was never on it, so I haven't detoxed. I've just never entered it.
Oh, well done. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.